Hey there, long time no see. Today I wanted to give some quick feedback on the Untamed Elite Specialization, which is set to launch with End of Dragons early next year. In short, the spec is based around the idea of trading power back and forwards between the Ranger and the Pet. To do this, the Ranger or the Pet can unleash using the new class mechanic F5 skill. So firstly, I'll start with the things that I really like so far. Above all else, our new Grandmaster trait, Fervent Force, is an absolute blast to play with, and it leads to some of the most interesting rotations I've seen on Ranger in quite some time. Essentially, every time you use a control skill on a monster or a boss, all of your cooldowns reduce by 4 seconds. In the right hands, this can be extremely powerful, but it also requires precision and planning ahead. I love it. I am, however, very mixed on the quarter-second internal cooldown of this trait. On one hand, it's very frustrating if two CC abilities accidentally overlap and one of them cancels out, especially when using skills that have a delay before the stun, like our new utility skill, Exploding Spores, or Storm Spirit's active ability. On the other hand, the internal cooldown means that you have to plan ahead, and it prevents any extreme exploitation of the trait. Either way, I love the trait and I hope it stays the way it is. So next up is our new class weapon, the Hammer. It is a power-based weapon that certainly brings decent power damage to the table. The base weapon has 2 dazes and a knockdown, while the unleashed form deals massive damage, especially to knockdown foes. Having the control skills on the base weapon is great, and it synergizes really well with Fervent Force. It is possible to quickly unleash the Pet, use all 3 of the control skills, and then unleash the Ranger again for a very quick 12 seconds of cooldown reduction. Honestly, this flows really well. Thirdly, Ranger finally got its own version of invigorating precision in the form of restorative strikes, which is a new Grandmaster trait that heals you every time you deal strike damage. While it's not quite as good as the Thief equivalent, it is nice to see and it could open up some options for tankier Ranger roles. The new healing and elite abilities further improve our ability to survive when it's needed, so there are certain raid roles where this could be useful. Now for the things that I wasn't too keen on. Firstly, I don't think I'm alone when I say that it's very disappointing that only Hammer was given unleashed abilities. If it's too much work to add them to every weapon, then I'd love to see something like shortbow get the unleashed treatment, at least so condition builds have something to play around with. Similarly, the Pet unleashed abilities, while decent in of themselves, they feel like a step backwards after Soul Beast. All Pets get the same 3 abilities, a teleport, a boon strip and a projectile block. Personally, I'd love to see at least each Pet archetype gain abilities suited for their class. For example, power-based Pets might be given harder hitting abilities at the expense of their utility. Thirdly, our new minor Grandmaster trait, Vow of the Untamed, means that there's roughly a 35% damage difference between the Ranger being unleashed and not. We can easily see this by using multiple hit moves like Hunter's Call. Unfortunately, the Pet does not gain any damage buff whatsoever when it's unleashed, and again you can verify this using a multi-hit move like the Bristleback's F2. This means it's very difficult to justify unleashing the Pet at all. We end up in this kind of Soul Beast-esque limbo for PvE where the primary class mechanic is rendered largely redundant. Though saying that, as I mentioned before, the Fervent Force trait does make it worthwhile to unleash the Pet while we're on Hammer to make use of the extra control skills. It's just a shame that this doesn't apply to any other weapon. One suggestion I have would be to add a trait which copies boons and buffs between the Ranger and Pet while transferring unleashed. For example, we could then pass our current boons to the Pet for a bursty damage spike, or we could move powerful buffs like Sikkim back to the Ranger for the same purpose. And that nicely brings me back to my last point, damage. From all that I've seen over the beta week, Untamed is currently severely lacking in the damage department, the best I've seen being Sash's Condition Untamed results, which I'll link below. But Rob, you say, wasn't that an Untamed doing 40k in the background at the beginning of the video? Well, yes it was, but you may also have noticed that I was a Soul Beast and merged with my Pet. Ironically, even with 2 elite specs and heavily exploiting a glitch, the class still lags behind things like the Mechanist under perfect conditions. Using the same rotation with a normal unglitched Power Untamed, I could barely scrape past 25k. In fact, base Ranger is currently a better option, not much of an elite spec, eh? In summary, it's rough around the edges and severely lacking in damage, but traits like Fervent Force make it extremely fun to play and theorycraft around. And it can also abuse bugs to make a brown bear do insane damage. What's not to like?
Because my power is maximal!